Live from a basement in Dubuque, Iowa.
I'll bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day.
30 minutes from the Field of Dreams and 4 hours from the closest professional sports team.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
On the banks of the Mississippi River.
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
It's the Degenerate Sports Betting Show with Matthew Freedman.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
And now your host, Matthew Freedman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Freedman, Matt F. the Oracle. Welcome to the Degenerate Sports Betting Show, brought to you by Best TV and sponsored by the FTN Network, where you can get all the season-long and daily fantasy and sports betting content your degenerate heart desires, including my fantasy football write-ups and all of my NFL sides, totals, and player props. Use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off your FTN subscription. That is Freedman for 20% off at FTN. Thanks for checking out the show. Subscribe to the Best TV channel on YouTube and rate, review, and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. All right, it is Monday afternoon, which means that we're going to talk about Monday Night Football. We're going to look at the Cardinals-Rams matchup and also look at some of the player props that have caught my eye for this evening's game. Producer Thomas Viola, psychic on the controls, connoisseur of pasta, titan of tomato sauce, Billy Joel junkie, and long-suffering Jets fan. Tom, Monday Night Football, let's get into it.
We actually have a fun matchup tonight, which is one of the last ones we should see for the season, unfortunately. But they're sending us off at least with a bang in this one. We got Arizona and the Flying High Cardinals versus the Rams. It's a great NFC West matchup. These games always end up being close no matter how good the teams are. And this year, both of them happen to be two of the better teams in the league. Arizona fighting for that top spot with Green Bay right now. They need this one. They sit as 2.5-point favorites. That's where they opened, and this line has stood firm. It has not moved here in Vegas. The total opened 51.5, bet slightly down to 51. But, oh, man, it looks like the bookmakers got these lines right, at least as far as the betting market's concerned. Cardinals 9-3 ATS this season. The Rams just 5-7. They've struggled a little bit out of the gate. Where are you going on the spread here? Are you laying the points with the Cards?
Oh, man, this one kind of, I don't know. You know, when I was doing the research for this one last weekend, this kind of stood out to me as a game that I wasn't sure I was going to have a position on. Recently, just within the past few hours, this line actually across the industry has moved down to 2. So it does seem that, you know, some people are moving this line towards the Rams, and I have taken it at -2. On the Cardinals. I'm impressed by them this year. They're top 2 in offensive and defensive EPA per play, number 2 on offense, number 1 on defense. And keep in mind, number 2 in offense, despite missing 3 games with starting quarterback Kyler Murray, missing some games with number 1 wide receiver Deandre Hopkins. I mean, I want to bet on them as favorites of fewer than 3 points, especially considering that they are at home. You know, I mean, if you're taking their home field advantage into account, the market is basically saying that the Rams and the Cardinals are even on a neutral field. And that just does not seem right to me, especially with how the Rams have looked lately. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, his injury issues, you know, lingering back issues he's had for years. He now has an elbow issue. And since the beginning of November, right, since November 1st, the Rams have won 1 game, and that was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, it's not pretty for them. But what makes me hesitant about this, it is divisional matchup. These teams do know each other pretty well. Sean McVay is 3-1-1 against the spread against Cliff Kingsbury. Road underdogs are 8-4 against the spread against Cliff Kingsbury. This makes me nervous. We've seen throughout his, you know, close to 3 years now in Arizona, going back to his days at Texas Tech, that when things seem to be going right for Cliff Kingsbury, when they are his team, when they are in a good spot, they tend to let you down. I just feel that this team is a little bit different though, right? Like his system is in place. The defense is so much better than any defense we have ever seen attached to a Cliff Kingsbury offense. I mean, Kyler Murray is looking like a guy who would be the MVP front runner or very close to it if he hadn't missed 3 games. I'm a little bit hesitant on this one, but I still think the value is with the Cardinals in this spot, even though they are going against a Rams team that has had their number in the past and a Rams team that does know them very well.
I'm with you on that divisional angle. I feel the same way. This game is always tough. It's always close and it's always unexpected. But some of the people I've been talking to that like the Rams, their logic is the Rams are a good team. We know this. They need to step up in one of these big time spots, and this is that spot. They feel to me like the Buffalo Bills this year. They were a team that was highly touted going in, a lot of success last season, and they haven't quite hit that peak. And we saw the Buffalo Bills finally kind of do it last night. They played one really great half of football, but it wasn't quite enough. And I just feel like this Cardinals team right now is built different. Like Kyler Murray has been phenomenal. Even coming back from injury, he has still looked good. And like Kyler Murray, I want to ride with the Cards in this spot, especially now that we're only laying the 2 and it's not a full 3.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like I fully acknowledge that the Rams are a good team. The thing that scares me about them is that they have been really, I wouldn't even say inconsistent. They have been it's not even bad, but they haven't performed up to their level over the past month and change. You could say this is the spot, like this is a big spot. They need to play big. You could have said that in any of the past 3 big games they've played, right? When they went up against Tennessee in week 9 in a primetime spot. And people are thinking like, oh, is this game going to show that Tennessee is totally fraudulent? Well, I mean, yeah, we would have thought that would be the outcome, but Tennessee easily won that game 28-16. You could have thought the next week, okay, they're in a bounce back spot going against a 49ers team that isn't all that good. And the 49ers dominated them 31-10. And then you could think, okay, well, that was the first game without Robert Woods, the first game with Odell Beckham Jr. They're kind of easing their way into it. They're going to go into the week 11 bye and coming out of it in week 12, going against Green Bay. This is going to be the spot, right? They're going to be unleashed in this spot. And that game really wasn't that close. It wasn't as close as the 36-28 score that we have as the final total there. Yeah, they dominated Jacksonville last week, 37-7. That is what non-horrible teams do. But the Rams have really underperformed for the past month. And it is similar to the Bills, as you said. I do think that they are a good team. They are better than the team that we have seen the past month. But something is wrong with them, whether that's Odell Beckham coming into the offense, the absence of Robert Woods. And so Beckham can't be a 1-for-1 replacement in there, and Stafford dealing with the injury issues. Like it hasn't all coalesced. It hasn't come together yet. And that's fine. There's still time. We have a month left in the season. There's still time for that offense to come together and to figure it out and for them to be a strong team in the playoffs. But right now, I don't think they have it all together. And going against a team that definitely has it all together as just 2-point underdogs, I don't think I can back them. And it's enough of a disparity right now where I think, yeah, I want to back the Cardinals.
I will say, if you're on the Rams, I feel like you're taking Rams money line in this one, especially at 2 points.
Yeah.
Personally, though, I am on the Cardinals here in this spot. I think that they are the better team, and they're going to show it tonight, especially after that Packers game yesterday. They need to keep pace because they do not want to have to go to Green Bay in January and February.
Yeah.
How about the total? It sits at 51 right now. What? Any thoughts there from you? Both teams dead even pretty much. The Rams 6-5-1 to the on the over/under split. The Cardinals an even 6-6.
I got nothing. I'm just going to say I think this number is right. The total should be high. This is one of the highest totals that we've seen this week. It should be a high total. We have 2 teams that can put up a lot of points, even though it's a divisional matchup. So you would think, these teams know each other well. Maybe that lends to a lower total. Two good defenses, maybe that lends to a lower total. Still, I mean, we've got two great offenses going in this game. I think this total should be in the 50s. I'm not touching it either way.
I mean, you look at the Cardinals, second in EPA per play, first in dropback EPA. You look over at the Rams, fourth in EPA, second in dropback EPA. These are teams, like you said, that put up points. However, and this is not coming from a place of looking at analytics or breaking it down. This is something that I've just noticed completely anecdotally over the last couple of years. I feel like almost every spot where we go, oh, it's going to be a high scoring one. These are two firepower offenses. The defenses step up, and both of these teams do have good defenses. It's completely just a controversial play to the narrative for me. I like the under in the spot.
You do like the under. I mean, I can see the case for both sides. And so I'm purely staying away from this, but you actually are going the distance of betting on the under.
Yeah. I like the under here. It's a total just zig when they zag play. And yes, the line has come down half a point to it, but it tells me that people are really, it's still fairly even on both sides there. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ride with it. I'm going to ride on the game narrative that one team shuts the other down and we finish with like a 30-14 score line, something like 28-14, something around there that doesn't quite get us over the total.
I can see that. What I will say is that I feel the range of outcomes is skewed upward. You know, that like if the under hits, it's not going to be like a 14-10 kind of game, right? Yeah. Like it will be the under hits and you get your cash by like 3 points or, you know, maybe a touchdown. But if the over hits, like it could end up being a shootout where like the over hits by like 20 points. You know what I mean? And I know like the range is different than kind of the median and you know, like how it is that things are distributed. But I feel like it's a little bit dangerous, but you know, I have to say I'm looking at some numbers here. 41% of the tickets on the total are on the under, but 69% of the money. Nice. Which, you know, yes, that is a good disparity there. 28% between the ticket count and the money, the overall money. And so, you know, that is indicating that the big money here is on the under with you. You know, like I can see it. You have 59%, not quite a super majority, but you know, like the majority is on the over here. You know, I can see how the narrative of two high power teams going against each other would inflate this line a little bit. I can see it. You know, I'm just, I don't want to be the guy who, it's not like I hate myself when I lose any given bet. Cause if that happened, I would really hate myself this year, but it's not like I want to bet against either of these offenses.
Here's the thing, Matt, like if it comes through, then we have a nice little Twitter clip to put out tomorrow and I get to spike a football. If it doesn't, we were wrong and we move on.
That's true. Good. It's all for the social media content.
Everything is for the social media content. That's how I live my life.
Obviously. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it makes sense. You applied for this job via social media.
It's true.
Yeah.
And hey, it's worked out so far.
Yes, it really has.
All right, let's talk about some props here, Matt, because we got a lot of them on the board. Not many running back props, but that's because of the seemingly ever-existing uncertainty between Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. But we still have some quarterback props and some wide receiver props that we can talk about. And let's start. The prop market for quarterbacks lives and dies by Kyler Murray. We've got total yards for him at 295.5. Are you taking the over? Are you taking the under? Where are we going on this one?
So I would say, one, this is a good reminder to look at the free tool we have at FTN Bets, the prop shop there, and Tom will link to it in the show description, where you can look around to be sure that you are getting the best number for any given prop in the market. So this is 295.5 at DraftKings. I do believe that it is 300.5 at BetMGM. So if you liked the under on it, for instance, that's where you would want to bet it. I do lean towards the under. I'm not betting it right now. I probably won't bet it. It's just we are a little under on the passing yardage, and a little under on the rushing yardage props. And so when you put that together, there's a decent disparity there between our projection and what the prop is, but not quite enough for me to want to bet this. I would just rather bet one of those other props individually and separately.
Very understandable there. How about receiving yards for DeAndre Hopkins? The line is at 58.5 at DraftKings.
Receiving yards. Why don't we just talk about Kyler Murray's under rushing yards?
Oh,
well,
my
we're
bad.
here.
My
Yeah,
bad.
no
You're right.
worries. Yeah. So I guess part of it is that I think the real edge in betting the under on Kyler Murray lies with the rushing yardage prop. But if you bet the combined number of passing and rushing, and Murray has a good passing day, then he could go over, and you would have been kind of on the correct side of the rushing yardage prop, but it doesn't hit. So anyway, I would bet this separately. Kyler Murray under 27.5 yards rushing. I got this at FanDuel minus 110. Last week, Murray had 59 yards rushing on 10 carries. That looks good for him. That's great for fantasy. But in the 4 previous games, the 4 games right before that, he failed to go over 27.5 yards in each of those games. He's gone under 27.5 yards in a nice 6 of 9 games. So I do think, especially this year, with him being, I wouldn't say cautious, but just a little more wary, a little more, I guess, cognitive of when he wants to leave the pocket versus when he wants to, kind of move around and continue to look downfield for a receiver breaking open. He's being just a little more cognitive of that this year. So he's not running as much this year as he has in previous seasons. And so that does lend towards the under here. So going Kyler Murray under 27.5 yards rushing.
And that's actually one of my favorite things about Kyler Murray as a quarterback and for his development and long-term success in the league is the fact that we see the rushing totals declining. He still has that ability, and he can still make defenses miss and break out a nice run that you have to account for. But he is looking to be more of a pocket passer, and that speaks to a better chance at a longevity of a career.
Yeah, it certainly does. And, that is something that he had coming in as a prospect, something that did differentiate him from other quarterbacks, where he did have that pocket passing capability, but he did have some kind of Lamar Jackson-esque type of ability too as a runner, given how prolific he was on the ground at Oklahoma.
Yeah. And it's good to see him kind of transitioning away from that and getting to that point, because he's a good passer too.
Yeah, he is. He is a very good passer.
All right, now let's talk about some receiving props here, starting with DeAndre Hopkins, 58.5.
Okay. I am getting this at FanDuel minus 105. Hopkins, I hate going under on Hopkins props because I think in terms of talent, he is one of the best receivers in the league. And, we've seen him be productive for a number of years, but this year is different than previous seasons. Last year, he had 10 targets, an average of 10 targets per game. And this year, he hasn't had double-digit targets in any game, in any single game. He had just 2 targets this past week. And granted, I wouldn't say it was a weird game, but it was a run-heavy game for the Cardinals. They weren't really airing it out. So, yeah, he had just 2 targets. A lot of other people on the team had just 2 targets. But it speaks to the ability of this offense to focus more on the run, to get ahead, and then just to grind out the clock with the running game. And also the fact that there are other guys on this team now. Last year, it was basically, I wouldn't say it was just DeAndre Hopkins, but he was clearly the main guy. This year, there is more of a balanced approach. They've upgraded at tight end with Zach Ertz. He brought in AJ Green, who, I don't think all that highly of him, but he's better this year than Larry Fitzgerald was last year. You brought in Rondale Moore. You have more receiving capability, or maybe not more receiving capability out of the backfield, but just as much receiving capability out of the backfield. So DeAndre Hopkins isn't the guy who is clearly the dominator within this offense. And then you add on top of that he is going against the Rams, who are good against the pass in general and they have Jalen Ramsey. This is like, I mean, these guys are like real nemesis. Like they hate each other. Okay. He is going to get some coverage from Jalen Ramsey, even though the Rams this year are using Ramsey more in the slot. They are going to put him on the perimeter sometimes so that he can match up against DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins in week 4 had 67 yards against the Rams, but that was one of his better games of the year in terms of efficiency. Last year, in 2 games against the Rams, he had just 52 yards and 35 yards on 23 targets. When Ramsey and Hopkins match up, historically, Ramsey has gotten the better of him. So I think we're going to see that this week. And again, it's a situation where Hopkins is not getting the volume that he has had in previous years. So I'm pretty skeptical on his ability to go over here. I like under 58.5 yards receiving.
And you're completely right. There are so many mouths to feed now in that Arizona offense, and they are doing a great job of spreading the ball around. And that means that it's really tough for any one of these receivers to go off in a particular week like that. It makes those unders a little more tantalizing. And another one that you're looking at is AJ Green under 43.5.
Yep, I'm getting this at BetMGM minus 115 odds. So last week we had Kyler Murray return, DeAndre Hopkins return, especially with Hopkins back. That means there's just less opportunity for Green within that offense. And so last week he had a season low 36 snaps, a season low 15 routes, and a season low 1 target. You know, within that offense, he's obviously behind DeAndre Hopkins, but I would say he's also behind Christian Kirk, probably behind tight end Zach Ertz, and maybe even behind running back James Conner in terms of pass catching priority. It is not important to that offense for them to get Green opportunities. It's kind of important that he's out there sometimes, that he's running routes, because he is an average NFL receiver that teams can't ignore. But he's not someone that this offense is built around. So going against a good pass defense, I think it's pretty easy to go under 43.5 yards receiving for AJ Green.
A couple other guys on this Cardinals offense, kind of worth mentioning. Rondale Moore, 24.5 yards, slightly into the over there, right?
Yeah, a slight lean to the over, in part because he is being used a little bit more within that offense. It's really easy to get him the ball on quick completions, and he's so dynamic after the catch that he can do a lot of the work on his own. But, you know, it could also be a game where he has 1 target. There's a lot of volatility within his range of outcomes.
So not a favorite bet, but something people might be interested in looking at. A couple other guys, Tyler Higbee over on the Rams side, 36.5. Van Jefferson, 52.5. Yeah. Cooper Kupp, though. The line sits at 90.5 receiving yards, and you have thoughts.
Yeah, this might be my favorite bet of the day. Cooper Kupp over 90.5 yards receiving. I got this at DraftKings, minus 115 odds. Get out of here with this line. Okay, this is a bad line. Now, I mean, I say it's a bad line. It's kind of consensus across the industry, so it's not as if like it was a mistake that they posted it. But this line feels very, very wrong, very disrespectful. Kupp has 10 targets, at least 10 targets in every game this year but 1. He has elite target volume, like best in the league target volume. He's gone over 90.5 yards receiving in every game but 1. Okay, now, yes, that 1 game was against the Cardinals in week 4 when he had just 64 yards receiving, but he still had 13 targets in that game. So for a guy who's averaging 10 yards per target and who leads the league in targets, leads the league in receptions, leads the league in receiving yardage with over 1,300 yards, this line is just too low. Because if he gets 13 targets again in this game, as he did in week 4 against the Cardinals, he is going to crush this line. Because yes, the Cardinals are good in pass defense, but what Cooper Kupp is doing, I mean, it's as if he is another quarterback on the field. And he's got that connection with Sean McVay in terms of how it is that they want to do things within the offense. He has immediately had a connection with quarterback Matthew Stafford. I do not see how he goes under 90.5 yards receiving unless he just does not get the target volume. And given that he has 10 targets in every game this year but one, I think it is very projectable for him to have the target volume he needs to go over this number.
All right, well, I will be slamming the Cooper Kupp over with you there. We can ride that together. I also need him to go off for my fantasy team, so we're going to correlate some bets here.
I'm with you there. I need him for my dynasty team. And by the way, I should say we have a great tool that was released at FTN Bets within the past couple of weeks. It looks at Jeff Ratcliffe's projections and it compares them to all of the lines at all of the books across the industry. In this line, Cooper Kupp, 90.5 yards receiving, is the one that stood out the most relative to Jeff's projections. So there is significant value here. And Jeff, I should just say, you guys have heard me say it before, the number one ranker in accuracy at Fantasy Pros right now. He's been one of the best in the industry for years at creating rankings and projections. When Jeff says, and it's worth noting, a lot of great guys who create projections tend to be conservative with their projections. And so you will normally see a lot of unders just with how it is that the projections are relating to the prop lines that are set. So if Jeff is saying that a prop is too low and Jeff tends to be conservative with his projections, you know that there tends to be value on that. So this is something to pay attention to.
That is very right. I am going to be hitting that up right after we get off this show. But first, we have a couple more bets to talk about, including Van Jefferson. And you don't like the Van down by the river to get going tonight. You've got him under 4.5 receptions.
Tom, come back for a second. When you said couple, were you trying to make a pun on Cup, or were you just okay?
That I promise you there was no pun intended.
Yeah. A little bit disappointed. Anyway, yes, Van Jefferson under 4.5 receptions, DraftKings minus 130 odds. Jefferson is intriguing because he really has come along. And since Robert Woods was lost to injury, he's been a much more important part of that offense. But really, even before that, they were starting to use him pretty significantly. The thing is, he has been used as more of a downfield target. So some of the easy receptions, for instance, that you would see going to someone like Cooper Kupp, those aren't the opportunities for Van Jefferson. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for him to have only 3 or 4 receptions, but to have 70 to 90 yards with a touchdown. Like, he could have a successful game and still have fewer than 4.5 receptions. Jefferson is gone. So, like, I'm just thinking of this. This is not a slight against Van Jefferson. This is more of a recognition of how it is that he is used within that offense and how that method of use doesn't match up with the prop that we see here. So Jefferson has gone over this number just twice this year. Last week against the Jags, and he did it in week 4 against the Cardinals. So yes, he could go over the 4.5 receptions, but he's being used most as a downfield receiver. The Cardinals have a tough pass defense. They're ranking bottom 10 in the league with just 11.6 receptions per game allowed to entire wide receiver units. You know that Cooper Kupp is going to get his fill of receptions. Odell Beckham Jr., he's going to get some. There might not be enough left over for Van Jefferson, so I will go under 4.5 receptions.
Now, we also have something else to talk about here, a little bit of a new wrinkle. Tell us more about the DFS picks tracker at FTN Daily, and what kind of top prop plays are we looking at?
Okay, yes. So we have a free pick tracker at ftndaily.com. If you go to ftndaily.com, up at the top, there's an option for DFS picks. You can click on that, and that will take you to the pick tracker. Also, I probably don't need to go through that explanation because Tom is the fantastic producer. We'll have a link to it in the show description. but it is a free tool where all of the people at FTN can put in their plays for some of the kind of like more niche DFS sites. So obviously, there's DraftKings, there's FanDuel, that's where a lot of people play, but there are also, I would say, emerging, like up and coming DFS sites that have a lot of really cool games. And so everyone at FTN is putting their picks into the pick tracker. And again, it's free for people to use. You can go and you can see all of the picks that we are making there for Prize Picks, Underdog, Jock Market, Monkey Knife Fight, and Top Prop. And so Top Prop is the one that I have been focused on a lot this year. And within the DFS pick tracker, my record for Top Prop is 25-11 with almost 13 units of profit. So pretty good. And there are two head-to-head matchups that I think are pretty intriguing for tonight at Top Prop. First, Matt Stafford versus Kyler Murray. Stafford has a fantasy point bonus of +3, right? So it's basically the spread. He's getting 3 extra fantasy points going against Kyler Murray. I have to say, it feels very, very wrong taking Stafford versus Murray, but I think Stafford is likely to have more pass attempts. Maybe they're playing a little more as underdogs in this game. And so we do see Stafford passing the ball more. And based on our projections, this line should be +2 and not +3. So I'm taking Stafford versus Kyler Murray, Stafford getting 3 points. I am also going with his tight end, Tyler Higbee getting a point versus Zach Ertz. Ertz could lose target volume now that DeAndre Hopkins is back, and Higbee, in his 3 games since Robert Woods went out with a season-ending injury, he's had 5, 5, and 6 targets. So I think he's going to have, if it's not a lot of target volume, at least consistent target volume. And based on our projections, this is basically a pick 'em. And so to be getting an extra point with Higbee and something that I think is basically a coin flip, I will definitely take that. And, so Top Prop, it's a really cool platform where you can have single player head-to-head fantasy matchups, with a fantasy point spread attached to it. So Stafford +3 against Kyler Murray, Higbee +1 against Zach Ertz. You can create your own matchups, and they set the fantasy point bonus that gets distributed on that. And you can use, of course, the highly original promo code Freedman at Top Prop to get a $25 bonus when you sign up. You don't even need to deposit to get that bonus, $25 when you sign up. Use it to put some action on tonight's Monday Night Football game. So that's what we're doing. And then of course check out the free pick tracker at FTN Daily.
That is right. Check out that pick tracker. We will have links for all of that in the description below this episode. Do not worry. Matt, that is going to do it for us. In addition to the pick tracker, the Top Prop, where can people find all of the great work you're putting out each and every day?
You can find the content at FTN Network. On Friday, I publish the Fantasy Football Breakdown. On Thursday, the Best Bets article. On Tuesday, I publish my fantasy rankings, which I update on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then all throughout the week in the FTN Bet Tracker, I put my NFL sides, totals, and player props. And on Twitter, on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app, and on FTN, you can get episodes of the Freedman Fantasy Football Show and the Degenerate Sports Betting Show. And always use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off at FTN. All right, that is the show. You can find me and Tommy V on Twitter at Matt F. The Oracle and TV at Work. Thanks for joining us, and see you next episode.